rocket technology was, to say, early 50s, at a sufficiently advanced stage that it might be possible within my lifetime to send spacecraft to the planets. And that was considered really crazy. And I can remember being invited over to, when I was in college, to homes of girlfriends and being asked what did I want to do. And I discovered if I said, I want to be involved in sending rockets to the planets, that my welcome wore thin very quickly. They thought that was something really crazy. And it's been my enormous good fortune, just a stroke of luck, that I live in the age of interplanetary flight, that I just happened to be around at the first time in human history, the first time in the history of the world, that we are exploring other worlds. Any other time would have been born, it either would have been impossible or it would have been done. And it's my delight to be alive and participating in the first time that it ever gets done, the first time that we discover what all those nearby worlds are like. I was lucky enough that my parents didn't discourage me. They didn't know anything about it, but they thought if I was interested in it, that was fine. And my great good fortune in that respect was not that anybody encouraged me, but that obstacles to my own interest were not too severe. That college education, there was a dedication at the University of Chicago to giving real breadth, was really a focusing incident, time in my life. I'd be a very different person if I had gone to another university and gotten another education, especially a much more narrow education. I knew I wanted to do astronomy. I knew you had to do physics to do astronomy. I knew you had to do mathematics to do physics. So I had a road that I was intending to follow. I think probably my parents would have been more comfortable if I had decided to be, at least at that early stage, decided to be a lawyer or a physician, because they knew that there was assured income there. Whereas astronomy, what was that? In fact, I can recall a conversation with my mother's father, my grandfather, when I was age 12, something like that, in which he asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I said an astronomer, and he said, "What's that?" And that had to be explained to him. And after he grasped what that was, he said, yes, but how are you going to make a living? The idea was very much, we were poor, that it'd be a good idea to make some money. And the thing I most appreciate about my parents is that they did not put too much pressure on me to leave this blue sky fantasy of studying stars and go to something more practical. They applied almost no pressure at all in that direction. They figured if I was going to be poor and happy, that's better than being rich and sad. Science has a set of experiences in which bizarre ideas, special relativity, quantum mechanics, which are so at variance with everyday wisdom, with common sense, turn out to be true. That's the way the universe is built. And if you happen to think that it's bizarre that time slows down when you take a walk, too bad for you. It's not up to you to decide how the universe works. And if you think that it's really crazy that a molecule can be in one position and another position, but not in an in-between position, too bad. Your common sense doesn't apply down at the level of the atoms. Science has a rigorous set of methods by which it can decide which ideas are in conformity with nature and which aren't. And as I said before, the ideas that don't work are ruthlessly eliminated. It doesn't mean that the scientist responsible is dragged off to prison. It just means everybody says this is a really dumb idea and don't bother me with it. The boundaries of the plausible depends on who is judging what's plausible. And it often happens that what is considered obviously plausible in one time turns out to be dead wrong in another. The Earth is flat. The Earth is at the center of the universe, a separate creation made human beings. There is a preferential rest frame connected with the Earth, and all the rest of the universe should be judged by the speed of the Earth. Well, all those were things which people for generations thought were obvious, plausible. And as far as we can tell, they are all dead wrong. So that's part of the reason why you must push the boundaries of the plausible, because nobody knows where those boundaries are, and what's plausible may in fact be wrong. I was for 12 years the editor of a scientific journal called Icarus. It's the leading professional journal of studies of planets, of the solar system. Icarus was the guy who flew his wax and feather wings too high up, too close to the sun in the Greek myth. The wax melted and he fell into the sea and drowned. He failed. He didn't escape from Crete to the Greek mainland. He died. Why name a journal after him? Why not name it after his father, Daedalus, who got away and moreover was the guy who invented these funny wings in the first place? The reason is, as is stated on the masthead of the journal, that Icarus demonstrates the limits of our understanding. Icarus pushes our knowledge to the breaking point. And that's what science is about. Not the comfortable understanding of things that are in place and well understood, but pushing the boundaries of science to what we don't yet understand. And of course we're going to fail sometimes when we do that. We're only human. But it is there at the frontiers that we ought to be. I think that what happens all over the world is youngsters get excited by science. They ask absolutely fundamental, beautiful, basic questions. Why is the sky blue? Why is grass green? How deep can you dig a hole? What's a dream? I mean, all these wonderful kid questions, which are all real scientific questions. And it makes adults nervous. And they give the wrong answer. They say, don't ask dumb questions. It's the worst possible thing to say to a kid. So many other things you can say. You can say, gee, what a good question. Let's go to the library. Maybe we can find out. Or, I don't know. I'll try to find out. Or maybe nobody knows, and when you grow up, you'll be the first to figure it out. I mean, there's so many good answers you could give a kid instead of that. I think almost everybody is born with an excitement about science, just a Latin word for knowledge. We are in danger of, we're posing a serious danger to ourselves and lots of other species on the planet. And you might argue that science, or at least science and technology, is the culprit. And there's no question that things like greenhouse warming, depletion of the ozone layer, nuclear winter, all sorts of local and regional pollution, radioactive waste, it's a list as long as my arm. Every one of those is connected with science and technology. Some criticism of science in this regard is not improper in my view. I think scientists have a responsibility. But what's completely clear, whether you blame science or not, is that there is no solution to these problems apart from science. And then there's one other aspect, and that is that, every human culture has myths about creation. Everyone wants to understand where they came from, where their family, country, species, Earth, the solar system, the galaxy, where did all that come from? And all over the world, people have made an attempt, consonant with whatever science was available in those days, to understand. The account in the book of Genesis is the best science in the world in 600 BC, when the Jews got it from the Babylonians during the Babylonian exile. But today, science has reached a point where many of these questions can truly be approached, and some at least plausible, in some cases compellingly plausible, answers are in hand. So everyone who wonders about origins has to be interested in science. There are answers there. And in my view, many of those answers are breathtakingly more interesting, more exciting, and more awesome than the older, superstitious, and religion-oriented creation myths. The search for extraterrestrial life is, in part, a search for who we ourselves are. And if you imagine not just extraterrestrial life, but extraterrestrial intelligence, well, how do those guys think? What are their views on mathematics, physics, social organization, religion, poetry, music? Maybe we got some facts wrong. It's going to be really awkward if there are things in mathematics we think are true and they've shown are mistaken. What if there are political recommendations or religious doctrines are at total variance with what we consider obvious, sacred? Here again, there's a bit of nervousness about seeing what else is possible, about examining our connection or otherwise. So in both of these quests, the quest to understand other living things on Earth and the quest for life beyond the Earth, I think we are dealing with the most fundamental of questions. If you look at all deeply, all of those millions of different species of life on Earth, every one of them exquisitely adapted to their environment, brilliant, hard to think of any other word, solutions to their problems of how to make a living, so many different brilliant solutions. And the idea that all of them evolved through natural selection from a single instance of the origin of life is just breathtaking in the grandeur of the vision that comes out of the evolutionary hypothesis. And I think that extraterrestrial life, the interest in extraterrestrial life, is part of that, for just the reason I just mentioned. Despite all the superficial differences among all these organisms on Earth, they are, every one of them, variations on a common theme. That common theme is nucleic acids and proteins. And we don't know what any other kind of life is like. We are hopelessly provincial and backward in our knowledge of biology because at best we know just one kind. What else is possible for life? Nobody knows. That's why the discovery of even the most humble bacterium on Mars or Titan or somewhere would be a revolutionary event. You know, take a hammer to a pocket watch. It's not likely to work better. You make a random change in a beautifully designed instrument. But the way evolution works is it keeps throwing out these random changes. And the environment selects the ones that are, by chance, better adapted. And it's very rare that any of them are better adapted. Most often, those mutations lead to death or fewer offspring eliminated from the community of genes. But every now and then, by chance, there's something that's better adapted. The environment changes, and the outrider, the runt of the litter, the organism that you thought was terribly adapted, suddenly turns out to be better adapted to the new environment than all of those beings who before were perfectly adapted. On a cultural level also, that's just what we ought to be doing. We ought to be encouraging diversity everywhere, but at the same time, pretty ruthlessly selecting what doesn't work. It's not just one. It seems contradictory, but you got to do that in just the same way that science works, by being open to the most bizarre new ideas, and at the same time, rigorously, in a draconian manner, rejecting those that don't work. You have to be open and super critical at the same time. It's not a contradiction. It's the machinery, the engine by which progress is made. A lot of people have an urge to conform to the norms of the society. They don't like bucking it. They, I think, have a built-in propensity for obedience to authority, for conforming to what everybody else believes, and so very hard for them to be at the outriders. But those aren't the outriders. Those guys are the well-adapted mainstream. But there are occasional people who enjoy it, like exploring, going over the mountains, seeing what's there, proposing, considering new ideas that others will think are bizarre or outrageous. The whole idea of freedom of speech is to protect those outriders, and that kind of balance every society makes. Some, in my view, may go too far towards enforcing conformity. Some may go too far to allowing all sorts of dumb and bizarre ideas out. But there is some appropriate balance which every society has to seek. Promising alternative ideas are being suppressed not by people being dragged off to jail in the middle of the night, but by those opinions being considered too unorthodox, too weird, ever to make it to the respectable media. And that is a serious problem. The extremely unorthodox idea not given an opportunity to be expressed. But I think the balance that science achieves is much better than the balance that political institutions achieve. Oh, my goodness. A few centuries ago, it was not even clear that planets were places. They were thought of, there were some mysteriously moving points of light in the night sky that did not share the motions of the so-called fixed stars, all the other stars. And maybe they were gods or some way to foretell human future or something mystical, or who knew? And now we know what they are. We have been to them. We have flown by all the planets known to the ancients. We have examined every planet except Pluto, as well as some 70 other worlds. And this is the generation that did it. There's only one generation in which ignorance is turned into knowledge in this way. It's just a stunning time in broadening our understanding of where we are in the universe. My favorite planet is the Earth. I have all sorts of temperamental and experiential resonances with it. I haven't seen all of it by any means. I sort of have the motto, see Earth first. But if you ask me what other worlds would I like to personally set foot on, if it were possible, and with modest penalty, I guess Mars. I've sort of dreamt about it since childhood and been involved in exploring it. But I wouldn't pass up any world. There's not a one that's boring. They are astonishing. And in many cases, you learn about your own world by exploring other worlds. You learn, for example, about what dumb things not to do with this planet by looking at the alternative fates of Earth-like worlds. Let me give two quick examples. You look at Venus, where a massive carbon dioxide atmosphere has produced a broiling 470 degrees centigrade surface temperature, hot enough to melt tin or lead. And that is a very good counter-argument to those who say, nothing to worry about from carbon dioxide greenhouse effects.
And the other case is Mars, where the surface is fried by ultraviolet light from the sun. And the reason is that there is a planet-wide ozone hole that's very relevant to people who say, oh, don't worry about the absence of ozone.